A community on edge as police issue new warnings about an accused gunman on the loose.
Flooding forces dozens of residents at a Moorhead rehab center to move hundreds of miles away.
Plus a stolen dog, a family's plea, and tonight, some good news. Valley News Live at 10 starts right now.
This is Valley News Live at 10.
New information tonight on a shooting at an apartment complex that sent one woman to the hospital. There's unease in the community as police continue to talk about a threat to public safety.
Police already have one man in custody. That's 28-year-old Jerome Kuhn. And tonight they're searching for others, including this man, 20-year-old Oliver Ty, following the shooting at the Arbors apartment complex. And that's where we find Valley News Team's Courtney Lockie tonight. Courtney, what's the latest?
Thanks, Mike and Andrea. Now, if you're not familiar, the Arbors is a pretty big complex. It's just off 25th Street South, kind of near Big Top Bingo. Walking around the complex tonight, I can tell that a lot of neighbors are still pretty shaken up, especially with these warnings that police are pushing out. No one really wanted to talk to me about the shooting, and many were too scared to even come to the door. But for those that did, they tell me that they're questioning their safety, wondering if the suspects are still in town or even at the complex. Now, police continue to tell us that there is a threat to the public safety, but what they won't tell us is exactly how many suspects they're looking for or a general area that they might be in. Police say this threat to the community is going to continue until Ty is taken into custody. But they want to remind you that this shooting was not random. Everyone involved knew each other. And if you see anything suspicious, you should call them or 911 in an emergency. Live in Fargo, Courtney Lockie, Valley News Live.
All right, thanks, Courtney. We've also posted Oliver Ty's photo on our website.
Severe flooding is forcing those living at this Moorhead Rehab Center to get care hundreds of miles away. An executive for the facility says 26 residents are at their sister facilities elsewhere in Minnesota. Water line repairs are underway, but there's still no word on what caused the break or when people will be able to return.
Health officials in America's rural counties say staffing and resource shortages are making their vaccination process even tougher. For example, in Hubbard County, Minnesota, where the population is roughly 21,000, they have just 5 public health nurses to administer the vaccine. The lack of supply is also a major hurdle.
Working with what we have and working with the small amount of vaccine that we've been allocated, we've pretty much been able to find a way to put it together and start getting vaccines into arms.
More than 300,000 Minnesotans have gotten at least one dose of the vaccine. That's only 5% of the state's population.
Some Minnesota seniors had luck on their side as they were randomly selected this morning to get the COVID vaccine. Nearly 230,000 Minnesotans over 65 pre-registered for the COVID lottery. That total includes 11,000 who were already waitlisted from last week. This morning at 7 a.m., the Minnesota Health Department started contacting a little more than 9,000 of them, which is about 4% of those who pre-registered. This lottery style is a change from the first week when a method of first come, first served led to a lot of issues.
Logging on yesterday and registering was really, really easy. And so the whole thing was more painless than one would expect.
There's still time to register for next week's drawing. If you pre-registered and were not called, you do need to register again.
It's still slow going for Minnesotans in COVID-19 vaccine efforts, with Pennington and Red Lake County officials saying they only receive around 100 doses each week and are just now finishing up their Phase 1A vaccinations. Meanwhile, across the Red River, Grand Forks County says that they're receiving around 1,200 doses each week and expect that to increase to 2,400 soon.
In a perfect situation, of course, we'd be getting lots more vaccine so that we could just vaccinate everybody who wants it right away. It's a really challenging situation to manage when you don't have enough supply to meet up with the demand.
Bruin says that they're now expanding to Tier 2 of Category 1B. That means those 65 to 75 years old with at least 2 underlying conditions can get on the waiting list for next week. To do so, you call the county's vaccine hotline at the number on your screen, 701-780-6358.
North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum announced plans today to change the statewide COVID-19 risk level to low. Starting at 8 a.m. Friday, the capacity in bars and restaurants will increase to 80% with up to 300 patrons. Banquet, ballrooms, and event venues are recommended at 75% of room capacity. Burgum says the state's 14-day positivity rate has decreased to 3%, the lowest since August. North Dakota ranked lowest among all states for test positivity. According to the CDC data tracker, the state also ranks first for getting the vaccine into arms. If you're looking to stay on top of the latest vaccine information, try our new VNL vaccine tracker. Here's how you do it. You open your phone camera and point it at the QR code on your screen, then tap the link that pops up. It will show you questions and answers from your state's Department of Health, resources from the CDC, FDA, and your local clinic. There's also a full list of area providers that you can sort by which priority group they're currently vaccinating.
North Dakota has 4 different state health officers since the beginning of the pandemic last March. Some lawmakers say that they think they have a solution for the high turnover. A bill has been introduced that would turn the state health officer and the Human Services Commissioner into elected positions instead of appointed ones. With those positions coming a lot of responsibility, and those in support of the bill say it's only fair for voters to choose who they think would make the right decisions.
If the state health officer has enough power to shut down a lot of the state or put out mandates without being an elected official, then maybe it's time that we make that person an elected official.
This bill is in the early stages, but if it eventually passes, those elected would serve a 4-year term.
Prescription drug costs are a hot topic among lawmakers. A 2020 survey by AARP shows that 44% of their respondents didn't fill a prescription specifically because of the cost. More than 80% of respondents say they believe it should be legal to buy drugs from Canada, and that's exactly what a bill in the North Dakota legislature would allow. 4 bills have been introduced that would reshape the state's drug prices and logistics. One would use Canadian prices as reference points. Pharmaceutical companies say bringing in foreign price controls would have crippling impacts on development and research.
Minnesotans who have been putting off driver's license and ID card renewals due to the pandemic will need to take action soon. The state says there are about 300,000 licenses and ID cards that would have expired between March 13th of 2020 and February 28th of this year. The expiration date on these cards was extended to March 31st because of COVID-19. Minnesotans with cards that expire on March 1st or later must renew it by the expiration date listed on the card.
President Biden proclaimed today as Climate Day at the White House. He signed 3 executive actions to address climate change. Caitlin Collins breaks them down.
With an elbow bump to his climate envoy, John Kerry, President Joe Biden signed a raft of executive orders on climate change today while comparing the crisis to the coronavirus pandemic.
Just like we need a unified national response to COVID-19, we desperately need a unified national response to the climate crisis, because there is a climate crisis.
His sweeping executive actions will integrate climate change into virtually every level of the federal government. And Biden wants agencies to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies while also pausing all new oil and gas leases on public lands.
Unlike previous administrations, I don't think the federal government should give handouts to big oil to the tune of $40 billion in fossil fuel subsidies.
Amid criticism from the fossil fuel industry, Biden said he won't ban fracking and portrayed the moves as opportunities for job creation.
We're not going to ban fracking. We'll protect jobs and grow jobs.
As Biden governs largely by executive order, the White House is still trying to get support from lawmakers from both sides of the aisle for his $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief proposal.
The president and vice president are engaged directly with members and have had a number of productive conversations that will continue through the course of the week and will only pick up in the days ahead.
Meanwhile, Biden's top coronavirus advisors held their first public briefing virtually today, technical difficulties and all.
Okay, so in other words, nobody heard anything from me. Is that correct?
As Biden comes under intense pressure to ramp up vaccinations, his senior coronavirus advisor, Andy Slavitt, gave a sobering estimate of when they'll be widely available.
It will be months before everyone who wants a vaccine will be able to get one.
According to the latest data available from the CDC, 24.6 million COVID vaccine doses have been administered so far in the U.S. The Trump administration had previously set a benchmark of 20 million by the end of 2020.
Despite the Senate Homeland Security Committee's endorsement, Republicans say they will filibuster Alejandro Mayorkas' nomination. President Biden nominated him for the Secretary of Homeland Security. Republicans are now saying he hasn't been properly vetted on immigration issues. Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer can get around the Republican filibuster, but it will likely take several days on the Senate floor. Homeland Security has been without a leader confirmed by the Senate since the former secretary left in early 2019.
Still ahead tonight, how a puppy stolen over the weekend in Minnesota has found its way home.
Doesn't feel like it tonight, but Hutch is assuring us, almost guaranteeing us tomorrow we'll feel better. He's got the forecast details next.